New York City. At the dawn of the 80s, it was exploding with opportunity.
Boom times. That's what the numbers signal today. An economy that's on a roll in this country.
A place to seek money, power, fame. Amid the glitz and greed, 5 titans seized their moment. By the mid-80s, they'd figured out that to get what they wanted, they just had to go to the media. And the media was more than happy to oblige. A Wall Street magician was basking in the spotlight.
I predict that this is just the beginning.
Even as his crimes grew more and more brazen.
This was going to come crashing down on him.
A real estate mogul was waist-deep in red ink.
Trump was particularly good at playing the media.
Even as he convinced the world it was just the opposite.
Oh, Donald, you are a big deal.
It is the greatest charade that Donald Trump ever pulled off.
The hotel queen was winning over the public.
Look at the shape of the head. You can see the brain just sits there. I'm very serious.
But behind her castle walls, she was nothing but wicked. And as a publicity-hungry prosecutor plotted his next heroic act for the papers.
I mean, it was crazy. U.S. attorneys aren't supposed to do that kind of stuff.
A newly christened mob boss mocked him in those very same pages.
Outfoxing the foxes in a big stakes game of cops and robbers that has made Gotti kind of a legend.
The downside to the real mobsters is, who needs this attention? We're a secret organization.
Even for a crook, he was a smart guy. But he made the mistake of dealing with people who weren't.
She would lash out at you, and I saw it happen to a number of people.
Was the story that I told completely, ultimately false? Yes.
These 5 titans would reshape the city and the world we live in today. By the mid-80s, they'd mastered the art of fame. But soon they'd learn that exposure can burn.
When New Yorkers pick up their tabloids, the Daily News and the Post each morning, they expect the headlines to pack a wallop, and they do.
For dyed-in-the-wool New Yorkers, there's nothing quite like a good, juicy scandal. And in the mid-80s, the press served up one after another.
Crime, money, power, what was happening in this country created this sort of perfect storm for tabloid journalism and for this kind of moment.
Every day, it was just a back and forth between the Daily News and the New York Post, and it helped the New York tabloids have constant fodder, which they desperately needed every day.
In the 80s is when the tabloids really started battling it out, and the people that emerged certainly had a knack for working the media.
There was a lot of attention in the media to business and the captains of industry. They became celebrities.
This was better than Dynasty.
Damn you, Alexis. I'm gonna kill you.
Don't! This was real-life Dynasty.
At this point, developers had almost supplanted movie stars in the gossip columns. Everything they did was so amusing, so wonderful.
And one of the biggest people who's benefited from this is Donald Trump.
He came, he saw, he conquered. And as the decade pressed on, the young developer from the outer boroughs was only growing bolder.
He had built Trump Tower, which made a tremendous amount of money. He had 2 casinos that were throwing cash at him like crazy.
But he also wants more.
He was determined to see his name splashed across the skyline. But first, he'd need his name splashed across the headlines.
The fact that New York was the media capital of the world allowed him to create the persona, to create the celebrity, create the name Donald Trump.
The whole ethos of Donald Trump's life has been, look at me, look how rich I am, look how successful I am. It's this mythology that has been built up.
You cannot walk far in Manhattan these days without seeing a piece of real estate bearing the Trump name.
It looked like a hugely successful operation. It was important to maintain that image because image was reality.
Donald Trump has become one of America's best-known and most successful builders.
Turning a $40 million real estate business into a $1 billion empire.
He has enough money to give everyone in the audience tonight $1 million. Okay, we'll see what kind of mood he's in.
At the time, bankers were doing many more loans based on reputation. And so when Donald gets magazine covers and TV shows about how rich he is and featuring his helicopter, bankers feel some sense of confidence in it. That's why he really wanted to be on the Forbes 400 list.
Okay, what's your first name, Danny? John.
Back in the 1980s, this John Barron guy was one of his publicists. He was the go-to guy to get, Trump goods.
Well, let me tell you what the deal is, just so you understand. Okay.
And he would say, well, I'm just calling for Donald, and I need to tell you the story.
And I'd like to talk to you off the record if I can, just to make your thing easier. Okay, sure. Is that all right? Yeah, that's fine.
But they were always him. It was Donald Trump.
It's not like he has a subtle voice. Donald Trump as John Barron is just Donald Trump.
John Barron is Trump's alter ego, I guess. I don't know. It was his alias. He was doing the press. He was doing the PR. He was making the phone calls.
He just concocted this whole false reality.
So he goes to Forbes and tells them, I have all this money.
First of all, most of the assets have been consolidated to Mr. Trump, because you have down Fred Trump. But I think you can really use Donald Trump now, and it's been pretty well consolidated, okay? Are you saying that perhaps for tax purposes the ownership has been transferred to Donald Trump? Correct. That's correct. Okay, and would you say, in excess of 90% of the ownership, I believe? I'd say in excess of 90. In fact, well, it's really closer to even the ultimate.
And Forbes puts him on this list.
I mean, Trump was lying so that he could move himself up on the Forbes 400. Talking about his wealth. Wealthy people don't do that. They keep that to themselves.
His life underneath that persona and sheen was arguably falling apart economically.
He was overextended on a lot of his loans, both in Atlantic City and in New York. At the same time, he was buying all the accoutrements of the wealthy, the plane, the football team, his second casino hotel, the Castle. Actually, he had lost a staggering amount of money, $1 billion in 10 years, more than any other individual in the United States.
One of the most amazing things about all of this was he's also writing and publishing The Art of the Deal while he is losing money on every deal that he was making.
Donald, just talk for a minute, if you would, about The Art of the Deal and your business philosophy.
Okay. You either got it or you don't.
The book, The Art of the Deal, was the first thing that gave Donald Trump a sort of national audience. It sold millions of copies. It was actually written by Tony Schwartz.
Trump was not involved for even a minute in any aspect of writing the book. I wrote the book, and miraculously, he read the book.
How you doing? How are you?
From the very first interview that I did with him for the book, it was clear that there was almost a complete inability to sit still and answer questions for more than a few minutes at a time. Because I couldn't get from Trump detail on the deals he was doing, I would ultimately go to other players in those deals and try to flesh it out. What I would discover is that their version of what happened in the deals was quite different than his version. And his version was always the most self-aggrandizing version, and it was often an inaccurate version. So was the story that I told completely, ultimately false? Yes, it was. I mean, it was an invented story, invented at a level far beyond what I recognized even at the time, but it was never anything close to the reality of who he was.
People who read the book uncritically come away thinking, what a genius he is. It really put Donald on the map.
Trump, it's taking on new meaning. Tycoon, billionaire, maverick.
It's written all over New York and Atlantic City, and now it's on the cover of a book.
How important is your word and your handshake in a deal? Or does everything have to be on?